We all know that sound, right? Those jarring, unmistakable tones that just cut right through whatever you're watching, followed by that robotic voice. Now, for most people, it's just, a minor annoyance. But for broadcast and IT engineers, well, that's the sound of one of the most critical, highly regulated, and demanding pieces of infrastructure in the entire building. So, today, we're going to dive into the emergency alert system. Welcome, everyone. So this is part 22 of our 40-part series on modern broadcast studios. It's all based on the fantastic guide for broadcast engineers who come from an IT background. And in this explainer, we are going deep into the material from chapter 22, which is all about the emergency alert system, or EAS.
So take a look at this. This unassuming black box is pretty much the heart of the emergency alert system at your station. And don't let its looks fool you. It's not just another piece of gear in the rack. This is a federally mandated device that, by law, has to be able to receive, process, and automatically take over your programming to get emergency messages out.
So let's try to reframe this a little. The next time this system interrupts your programming, what are you really seeing? Is it just a brief disruption, a little bit of dead air? Or is it a critical piece of a nationwide disaster recovery and public safety infrastructure kicking into high gear? Okay, let's really get into this. First things first, let's follow the path of an alert as it comes into your facility. Seriously, understanding this signal flow is the key to appreciating how the system is designed, and maybe more importantly, why your IT skills are so absolutely crucial to making it all work. The whole process really breaks down into 4 key stages. It all starts with alert reception. That's where the EAS decoder is just constantly listening, monitoring multiple sources. Then you've got priority assessment, where it has to figure out, okay, how big of a deal is this? The third step is programming override. That's the part you actually see on air. And finally, for some stations, there's alert relay, where they pass the message on down the line. Now, a really cool part of that first stage, reception, is this idea of FIPS codes. You see, the system isn't just listening for any old alert. It's looking for these super specific geographic codes. And for all you IT folks out there, think of it kind of like IP subnetting, but for geography. It lets the system be incredibly precise, making sure a local flood warning in one county doesn't set off alarms 3 states away. Pretty smart, right? Okay, so next up is assessment. This is where the decoder automatically figures out the alert's priority level. And let me tell you, not all alerts are created equal. A local weather alert might have a little bit of flexibility, but a presidential alert, that is absolute. It must go to air immediately. There are no delays, no exceptions. It's the one alert that a station literally cannot override. This is really where the magic happens. The EAS unit doesn't just make a loud noise. It has to actually take control. It sends out commands to your station's automation system, sometimes through simple GPI contact closures, or more and more these days, through network commands. And this right here is a critical point of integration, where your knowledge of system automation and IT is absolutely essential to make sure that interruption and the return to programming is clean and reliable. So that brings us to our next critical area, compliance. The EAS is definitely not a set it and forget it kind of device. It's governed by some really strict federal rules that demand constant testing and, you guessed it, meticulous documentation. And when I say the testing schedule is rigorous, I mean it. This is non-negotiable. Every single week, there are internal tests to make sure the decoders are working. Every month, an on-air test has to be done and logged. Annually, you've got state-level tests that coordinate across the whole region. And on top of all that, there are periodic national tests to make sure the entire chain of command, from the federal level all the way down, is working perfectly. And right here, we see this fantastic connection to the IT world. If you've ever had the pleasure of dealing with compliance for things like SOC 2, HIPAA, or PCI DSS, then the principles here are going to feel very, very familiar. EAS compliance is all about defined technical requirements, mandatory testing, and exhaustive documentation. And the logging, I really can't overstate this. Every single required test, and it doesn't matter if it passes or fails, it must be documented in the station's log. These logs are absolutely subject to review and audit by regulators. The whole process is basically identical to the audit trails and change management logs that are fundamental to any regulated IT environment you've worked in. Okay, so we've got a system that has to be targeted, automatic, and meticulously documented. But the single most important requirement is reliability. And we're talking about a level of reliability that goes way, way beyond what's expected, even in the most demanding corporate IT environments. Let's just compare for a second.
In standard IT, you get scheduled maintenance windows, you have best effort recovery times, but with EAS, forget it. There are no maintenance windows. It demands 24/7, 365 absolute uptime with instantaneous automatic failover. And here's the kicker. It has to function even when the rest of the building has lost power and is running on generators or batteries.
It all comes down to this one single premise. The entire EAS infrastructure is engineered with the expectation that it will work when everything else is failing. It's not designed to work when things are going great. It's designed to perform flawlessly in a worst-case scenario. It really is the ultimate disaster recovery system.
And this brings us to what I think is the most important takeaway from all of this: your role. As those old lines between broadcast engineering and IT have just completely blurred, your skills have become absolutely central to this vital public safety mission.
I mean, think about it. Managing the network commands between the EAS box and the automation system, that's system integration. Designing the power and network failover to guarantee it works in an emergency, that's high availability planning. Maintaining this detailed test logs for the auditors, that's just compliance management. Your core IT skill set maps directly to the demands of keeping this critical system running. So the next time you hear that alert, remember, it's so much more than just an interruption. It's a system that you help maintain. Your IT skills aren't just supporting a media company anymore. They are a direct, critical component of our nation's public safety infrastructure. So the real question is, are you ready for that responsibility?